The Dallas Cowboys franchise tagged their quarterback, Dak Prescott. So he will not become a free agent. He's going to play next year in Dallas. The question is, will he get a long-term deal or not? So if Dak does not agree to a long-term deal by July 15th, then he will play next season without a long-term deal. He'll be playing on a franchise tag, which means he'll have a 1-year contract to prove how good he is and prove what kind of contract he should get. That would mean that Dak Prescott would be betting on himself to earn a larger contract than the one the Dallas Cowboys have offered him. And I see two sides to this. Number one, people have to decide. Are you a Dak Prescott fan or are you a Dallas Cowboys fan? Dak Prescott and the Dallas Cowboys do not necessarily have the same interest in mind in the next coming months for the quarterback and his contract scenario. Number one, I want to warn Dak Prescott, dude, take the money. Take the money you've been offered. Dak Prescott reportedly was offered a $100 million contract, and he turned it down. He said, nah, not enough. Not what I want. And I want to say, I've taken risks in my life. I've moved around the country. I've done a lot of interesting, weird, crazy stuff, I think more than most people that are 23 years old. And so I want to say, I believe in taking risks. I'm not a person that's risk averse and says, oh, just play it safe forever and get a 401k. And I'm not that guy. I never have been. But I also believe in taking, risks that you have a chance to succeed. My fear here is that Dak might not have a good season next year as a quarterback. I really, truly believe that there's a high possibility that Dak is not as good next year as he was this past season, statistically and from a playing standpoint. What he put on film might not be better next year than what he put on last year. And I really think Dak Prescott needs to put his ego aside. He's so caught up in, I was only offered $100 million. I want $115 or $120 million. I should at least get paid more than Ryan Tannehill. Dude, put your ego aside. Take the money you've been offered. Yeah, let's do the math. So if Dak Prescott was offered a 5-year deal worth $100 million, that's around $20 million a year. He's like, no, I want more. I think literally the report is that he wants $40 million a year. It's insane. No way. No way. I just wouldn't pay it. I'd pay Dak $25 million, maybe. I wouldn't feel great about $25 million, but hey, why not? I think Dak's really more worth around $20 million a year. But also, it's interesting, Dak keeps pushing for as much money as possible, and all that does is hurt his team. When Dak pushes for more money, he's just hurting the Cowboys. They are losing salary cap space. The more money they pay Dak Prescott, the less money they have for everybody else. And it makes sense to me when you give a guy like Russell Wilson that kind of money. A guy like, I don't like giving even Russell Wilson that kind of money, but hey, Russell Wilson can win with less. Or Aaron Rodgers in the past, when he signed his big contract, was so talented, he could win anyway, right? A guy like, if the quarterback is one of the top 3 or 4 best quarterbacks in the NFL, give him the money. But Dak Prescott doesn't seem to understand where he stands in the NFL. I think he thinks he's with Russell Wilson. Let me tell you, Dak Prescott is not Russell Wilson. He's not. And as the Cowboys lose cap space, they're losing players. They lost Byron Jones yesterday. They lost Randall Cobb. They were expected to lose him. They got him on a really cheap contract for 1 year. But they also lost Robert Quinn. And the more money that they pay Dak Prescott, the worse their roster will be and the harder Dak Prescott's job will be. I just think it's weird. I don't really understand the approach here. Here's the reality. The Cowboys should not give Dak Prescott a long-term contract. Again, let me repeat that. Be very, very clear. Are you a Cowboys fan or a Dak Prescott fan? Dak Prescott fans want their guy to get paid. I don't think a Cowboy fan actually wants, if you really just want good for the Cowboys, you don't want the Cowboys to give Dak Prescott a long-term gigantic contract. What I've seen on film is Dak Prescott is a mediocre quarterback. He's got some accuracy issues. And people are going to say, well, what about his completion percentage? Yeah, he's fine throwing to guys who are open underneath. A 5-yard pass with nobody around him. Of course, his completion percentage is going to be really high because he dinks and dunks. He's throwing little tiny passes underneath. But when you need a guy to dial in a great throw downfield into tight coverage late in a game, Dak Prescott hasn't been that guy. Watch the film. It's not there. He's a mediocre quarterback. He's not awful. He's very good. He's got a very, He's got a good jawline. People talk about that. He looks the part. He says all the right things. He's a very stable, sturdy, good leader. Is Dak a highly accurate quarterback who can dial up a great throw downfield in a tight coverage? He's not. I'm not paying that guy $40 million a year. No way. I don't know, man. You remember when the Bills embarrassed the Dallas Cowboys last year? They got embarrassed. Don't forget that game. The feeling of watching Dak Prescott get destroyed by the Buffalo Bills. Anybody remember that? I remember that. Thanksgiving Day. I went, oh, wow. I believe it was at the Cowboys Stadium. They got embarrassed by the Buffalo Bills last year. And everyone wants to talk about how, well, the reason why the Cowboys weren't as good last year was because of their coach. And sure, if you want to put all the blame on Jason Garrett, go ahead and do it. But here's the reality. Last year, the Cowboys roster was pretty good. You gave Dak Prescott a sports car last year. He was driving a Porsche 911. And he went 8-8 with a Porsche 911 last year. You're telling me in the future, Dak Prescott's going to have a worse roster because he's going to be making a ton of money and they're not going to be able to pay anybody else? And then you expect Dak Prescott to win that race when he's driving a pickup truck instead of a sports car? No way. Dak Prescott needs a good roster. Every quarterback needs a good roster, but Dak Prescott, really needs a good roster because he can't dial in that great throw in a man coverage downfield consistently. He's not that kind of quarterback. I am telling people, I'm warning people, unless Dak Prescott makes tremendous improvements next year, I would not give him a massive deal. I get the franchise tag. That makes sense for the Dallas Cowboys. They keep him there, and they have a new head coach. And maybe Dak Prescott gets way better next year. And you're like, wow, with a new coach, a new offense, he's just a way better quarterback. I can't believe it. But what I've seen from Dak Prescott to this point is not a guy I would pay a ton of money long term. It's just not. I would not give Dak Prescott, let alone, $100 million. I guess $20 million a year, that makes sense to me. If it's a 5-year deal, $20 million a year, I'd give that to Dak Prescott, sure. But even that, do you really want to be married to Dak Prescott for 5 years, a guy who's got limited potential at this point? I don't know. I'm telling you, Dak Prescott's not quite as good as everybody believes. At least he hasn't been to this point. Winning does not necessarily reflect you. It reflects how good your team is. They've had a really good roster the last couple of years. And here's the thing. No matter what I say related to the Cowboys, half their fan base hates me. Half their fan base likes me. I don't care what anybody says. I'm telling you what I believe. I would not pay Dak Prescott a gigantic, massive contract. Unless he proves it to me next year, hey, it's got to be great. But right now, Dak Prescott better prove next year why he deserves a massive, massive contract. In case you don't know, Strong Opinion Sports is not just a YouTube channel. It is also a full audio podcast. You can find it on Spotify, on iTunes, on Google Play, pretty much everywhere you find podcasts. And if you like podcasts, please do me a huge favor and give it a listen.